I'll
Now
see
you're
you later. I got
You're live
go.
now. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so I don't know what happened, but we're here. Everybody's live. We're ready to go. Let's get it jumped in. We got about I'm gonna give him about 10 minutes to respect his time. So a swarm of questions. Let's do this. He's got to get up at 4:30 in the morning. I just found out. So I got to respect the guy's time. So without further ado, my guy, Eric Bischoff. How are you tonight, sir?
Hey, man. Good to be back again. It seems like just yesterday.
Hey! All right, so let's jump right into it, man. I appreciate it very much, man. All right, so let's start off with Brian. Do you see Aleister Black as top guy material? Would you change anything about his current gimmick?
I didn't work with Aleister enough. I worked with him a little bit, talked to him quite a bit. When I first got to WWE, to get to know him. And Paul Heyman was very excited about him and seemed like a really knowledgeable guy. I was very impressed with him in a lot of ways, but I didn't get a chance to work with him long enough to make any kind of a judgment as to what his potential is. That would be unrealistic and a little arrogant on my part. So I'll refrain from that, but I think he's got a ton of potential.
Nice. Rizu's asking, hi, Eric, big fan. Pleasure to have you here at Sports Keto. What did you think of the way WWE treated Sting?
I'm of two minds on that question. On the one hand, I think they did everything, they, meaning WWE, did everything they could to create a moment, a very memorable moment for Sting and for fans of Sting and WCW in general. An amazing spectacle. I think creatively, was it the best way to possibly finish Sting's career in the ring? I guess it's subjective. I didn't think so. I think a lot of fans that were big fans of Sting's might not have thought so. And that doesn't mean that Sting would have had to get a win over Triple H or anything like that. But I just mean the general feeling that what people had when they walked away. If you're a Sting fan and a WCW fan, how did you feel when that was over? Probably a little like me. Happy for Steve and Sting, the character, to get that moment, to get that recognition. I know for a fact it was overwhelming to him in a really spiritual way, almost, for Steve. But I'm sure it could have ended differently.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sting is my all-time favorite, and it's a hard no for me. So as a fan, so I wasn't happy. I hope he comes back once. I'm not the guy who says come back for WrestleMania against The Undertaker. I'm totally against that, actually. But some type of redemptive win, maybe Seth Rollins at a WrestleMania or something like that would make me feel better as a little fan.
My understanding is that Steve Orton has a pretty severe neck injury. I want to say stenosis of the spine or stenosis of the neck, and I could be wrong on that, so please don't quote me. Probably shouldn't have even said that if I'm not sure, but I'm fairly certain that's what I read. So, I mean, I'm sure, like a lot of guys his age, he's just a little bit younger than I am, and there's always that part of you, if you were a performer or an athlete or anybody that got your rush out of doing something physical, a dancer. I guess it doesn't matter. If you're a performer of any kind. Your brain gets older, your body gets older, and your brain sometimes recognizes it, but most of the time your brain is still convinced you're 25 years old and you could do anything. and that's always a bad sign when that happens, because something's got to give.
Yeah.
You really convince yourself, no, you can't do that anymore, even though you feel like you could, or you succumb and you become Mike Tyson at 54 years old and you get back in the ring again because you want to do it again.
Yeah, I think he's going to just eat Roy Jones Jr. alive, actually. I saw
I'm actually looking forward to that, man, more than any other fight that's coming up.
Yeah, I am too. Yeah, I agree. Jason,
I dig Tyson Fury. I do really dig Tyson Fury.
Yeah.
I had a chance to spend a little time with him and get to know him a little bit.
Oh, nice.
Super cool guy. He's just as cool away from the camera as he is, when he's on. He's a larger than life character, but he's a very, very good dude, down to earth person. Nice.
Jason's asking, what's your opinion on how AEW is doing?
I mean, it's pretty exciting. If this is so hard to do in the context of the period that we're in. We're in the context era, or the COVID era, along with the context era. But we're in the COVID era, right? And nothing really is growing in audience in terms of sports entertainment. Nobody, except for AEW, is starting to show some real signs of life. They're knocking on 1 million viewers again, which is not far off from where they were when they debuted. So that's a really good sign. I think the fact that SmackDown hasn't fallen farther than it has, I know it's not going to sound like anything to cheer about, but I think that's a good sign. I think that they've stabilized. They're still delivering over 2 million. They're still right up there in the key demos. they're more than treading water in that regard.
Yeah.
The only one that seems to be really suffering right now badly is Raw.
Yeah.
But to see AEW actually not holding steady like SmackDown and not dropping like a rock like Raw is got to be interpreted as a good thing.
Yeah. The Jess says the best superstar you've come across in terms of work ethic and talent.
Wow. I have to think about that one. Come across in my entire career. Man, there's been so many of them. Diamond Dallas Page in a way. I'm going to pick Diamond Dallas Page because he's the least obvious candidate, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Most every, John Cena. Come on, John Cena. Kurt Angle. Come on, Kurt Angle. I mean, arguably, we could probably justify picking 8 or 10 people, and we wouldn't be wrong on any of them.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I like to pick Diamond Dallas Page here is because he came from out of nowhere. The odds are stacked against everybody that gets into professional wrestling. But when you really when you wait and you start training until you're 34, 35 years old, the deck is really stacked against you.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to just make the team, so to speak, and make it to TV, and then find yourself wrestling in a main event and wrestling for the world title and wrestling guys like Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan and Scott Hall and Kevin Nash and Ric Flair and Roddy Piper and go on and on and on. That's kind of a big damn deal.
Mm-hmm. Our novice says, as a booker, would you prefer multiple short title reigns or a single yet lengthy reign?
No easy answer there. No right answer, no wrong answer. It depends on the situation. And we're in the age of the context again. What's the context? Have you had a series of recent turnovers in your championship over the last 18 months or so? If you have, maybe it's time to mix things up a little bit and go a little long term. Same could be said if you've had a long reigning champion for an extended period of time, and now you want to create some interest and excitement and maybe throw people off a little bit, have some fun. Yeah, maybe a couple short reigns might be what the doctor orders, but it depends on the situation.
Yeah. Devin's asking, what's it like getting your head shaved bald by your nephew, Eugene?
I've had my head shaved a few times now, and I think Eugene was probably the best.
Okay.
If Eugene decides, he's going to take a little bit of the family inheritance and open a business, I would encourage him to open up a barbershop in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where he lives.
Nice. Is he hiring Brutus?
Is he better than Brutus?
Is he hiring Brutus at his barbershop?
Oh, no, I don't think anybody would ever hire Brutus for anything.
All right, let's go to Michael. How was working with John Cena back in 2005?
Yeah, it was fun. It was easy. Great guy, a super pro, tougher than nails. Couldn't have been more generous, courteous, helpful, and just fun to be around. And he was fun. He's fun to work with.
Nice.
The only negative moment I had working with John Cena, I actually worked a match with him once, and I don't know when it was. Might have been 2005. And there was a spot in the match where John's head was hanging, he was on the mat, but his head was hanging outside the ropes, kind of on the edge of the ring mat. And I was out on the ring floor. So I was supposed to come up and just whack him in the face. John's got a jaw like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. He's got this big-ass jaw. Just big. And it's just big jaw sitting right up in the air.
How big is it, Eric? It's this big.
So I walked up, and I don't like hitting people. Now, if I'm angry, if situation calls for it, that's different. Then a different part of my brain fires up and it takes care of itself. Mm-hmm. But if that's not the case, I don't like to swat flies, truth be told. I just, So I see John sitting there, and it's just like, I know if I don't really lay it in there, then he will be pissed and beat my ass. Like I know in my head, I know if I hit him as hard as I can and knock out 2 of his teeth, not that I could, but if I could, he'd probably go, good match, way to lay it in. But if I go up there and go, and then he has to sell it, that's what they really get pissed off about. They don't get pissed off that you didn't really hit them hard. They get pissed off that they got to sell something that looks so terrible. I tippy-toed up there, and I reached back. I hit him as hard as I could, and I'm not kidding you. My hand went numb. Like my little finger and my ring finger and my right hand went numb. Wow. The jaw was so hard. It was like hitting a brick wall.
Wow. All right, got a couple more minutes. Manak, what is your favorite WrestleMania match or any moment that you have remembered it forever in your life?
People ask me these questions, and I know I'm going to disappoint them with my answer, and that disappoints me. I wish I could tell you I had one favorite match or one favorite moment, whether it be WrestleMania or any other time. I wasn't a part of. I was only at 2 WrestleManias, I think. So it's not like I ever experienced a lot of WrestleMania, things, but. That all runs together for me, man. I guess because I've been in the business for 30 years. I try to describe to people my memory of wrestling and my recall of wrestling is a little bit like looking at a kaleidoscope with 1,000 moving brightly colored pieces, just all kind of converging on each other. Because I've been in it so long and done so much of it, watched so much of it, and produced so much of it, and talked about it for so much, it all just ends up blending together. Mm-hmm. There were moments in my life, I think, where I enjoyed wrestling more than others as a fan. Once I got into it, I was no longer the same fan. Mm-hmm. I still consider myself a fan today, but I'm a fan who watches wrestling from a producer's point of view. Mm-hmm. I can't help that anymore. So I don't look at it quite the same way that other people do. But if I picked out periods of time, I think when I was 14, 15 years old, just getting to Minneapolis and watching Vern Gagne's AWA, that was kind of cool because that was my first kind of feeling like, oh, there's something here in Minnesota I can relate to because I was watching wrestling in Pittsburgh, Mm-hmm. My first home team, if you will, before I got familiar with the home team. I think going to see, what was one of the biggest matches I saw before I got into the wrestling business? Any one of the Nick Bockwinkel matches that were really hot, in the mid to late 80s, those were always my favorite matches. My brother and I would go to those. So as a fan, I would say my mid 80s and AWA, believe it or not.
Nice. All right, guys, I know there's a bunch. We'll only have time for one more question. Hopefully.
I promise right here on the show while you're all watching, I will do this again next week.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, we'll get a round 2 together. I'll let you know.
And maybe we'll make it a little longer, and we'll make sure we're up and running a little sooner.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. I appreciate your flexibility for sure. All right, last question. What was the reaction of everyone, superstars, officials, Vince McMahon, when CM Punk returned to the WWE backstage?
I wasn't there, man.
All right. I
wasn't there, so I couldn't tell you.
On that note,
I could make something up. I could probably make up some really cool stuff that would.
No, because
Vince McMahon keeps storming out of his office. Where is that son of a gun? I could go nuts. You could have a blast.
Where's Phil at? If you made something up, it'll be all over the headline. So you don't want to do that for sure. So thanks, man.
It'll be a fun rib though, because
it would be. Yes.
Because the only people that would believe it were people that just want to believe anything that they read anyway. Right?
That's true.
Until eventually somebody would come along and say, "Wait a minute, Bischoff wasn't there then." And then the joke would be on everybody that believed it. So maybe you never know.
So give me 7 seconds of how the superstars were when CM Punk came to the WWE backstage, Eric. I know you were there, right? Eric, it's been a pleasure, man. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate your flexibility, and I'm going to move the schedule around so we can make this happen again.
All right, buddy.
Next week, man. Thanks a lot, Eric. I appreciate it, man.
All right. So long.
All right, bye-bye. All right, y'all. I already had somebody scheduled for next week, but we will make some adjustments, man. If he's willing to do part 2 next week, I'll text him and we'll make it happen. We'll make some adjustments. So there you go. Stick tight, hang tight, and look forward for part 2, man. So great stuff. I appreciate all your involvement. Great stuff. Have a good night, everybody. And I'll be working diligently to move the schedule around. I'm actually booked until the end of August with interviews. So I'll move the schedule around to make part 2 happen for you all. So it's been fun, everybody. Appreciate everybody coming on the show with us tonight. And remember, you just watched UnSKripted with Chris Featherstone. Have a good night.